Oh, so our question of the day is uh, from a member of our church. She says, "My neighbor says she's a Christian, but she never goes to church. I try to talk to her about Jesus, but it only seems to end in conflict. We are always fighting when we talk about Jesus. What should I do? I want her to go to church, but I don't think she's a Christian because she doesn't go to church. Is she a Christian?" Wow. Okay. So that's a lot of question right there. All right. First off, let me just back us up and address the issue of we're always fighting and in conflict when we talk about Jesus. There's probably a bigger issue there that maybe needs to be addressed, and probably a reason why she doesn't go to church. All right. So she says she's a Christian, and she doesn't go to church. There's some conflict then anytime you bring up church and Jesus. So let me just help you understand why this is important. Probably her idea of church comes out of a wounded background where when you say church, you have an idea of what that means. When she says church, she has a completely different idea of what that means. And so she probably has an idea of some kind of wounds or fighting or somewhere where somebody harmed her or somebody she knew. And so when you talk about church, you have this positive, amazing feeling, and you have this family that loves you and cares for you, and she has an entirely different view of that. Now, her view may not be correct, but in her experience, it is correct. And the challenge there is that we can never judge the church by its abuses or by the people who misbehave, right? Never judge a theory or philosophy by its outliers, right? And so we have a group of people who probably have harmed this lady, at least in her perception, and therefore she has this disdain of church. You have this positive experience of church, and whenever you get together to talk about church, you say you end up in some kind of conflict. Now, the second piece I would say there is I don't know why you would end up in conflict, and maybe that's a bigger question is like, hey, why is it that when this conversation goes here, I become emotionally charged and then we end up in conflict? And what buttons is your neighbor pushing on you? I don't know. Maybe she's there and she starts bad mouthing church and you get all excited and defensive. But I would just step back and say, all right, why am I allowing this person to push buttons in me and it creates conflict? A different approach that I would recommend would be rather to simply ask her about her experience with church. Let her begin to share her experiences of pain and hurt with her church experiences with you so that you can begin to address those or even grieve with her. I have found that there's great power when people have been hurt by church to just acknowledge that that was wrong. That's not the way church should behave. To even apologize on behalf of the church, because guess what? You represent the body of Christ. Even say, we messed up. We didn't care for you. And I have found that in those moments of grace and forgiveness, that there is amazing blessing and amazing power that can come and build a friendship and even build bridges back to the church, because we can then say, that's not the way it should have been, and that's not my experience. So that would be my approach, is to say, hey, tell me about your church experience, because again, she's obviously got a different view than you do. Is she a Christian? That's the second part of your question, really, and that's a tough one. Here's why I say this. Because if being a disciple means having a healthy, intimate, passionate, growing relationship with Jesus Christ, she doesn't have a healthy relationship with Jesus Christ, because Jesus Christ's body is the church. And so she's got an estranged relationship with Jesus. And unless she's a part of some kind of regular Bible study or a part of some other group that is meeting, she probably doesn't have the intimate, passionate, growing relationship with Jesus. Now, let me be clear. I'm not God. I'm not the one that's going to judge her or to look into her heart and say, yeah, you do love me, welcome in. Or to say, you hate me. You don't want to be with me, so I'm not going to force you to be with me. Because again, that's ultimately what hell is, right? You don't want to be with me, I'm not going to force you to be with me. And so I'm not going to be the one to judge that. So I would hate to say, hey, clearly she's not a Christian. What I would say to you is that she has a dysfunctional relationship. Let me give you an example. All right. Again, being a Christian is being a disciple of Jesus, meaning that we have a healthy, intimate, passionate, growing relationship with Jesus. It means that we're following Jesus. That's what it means to be a disciple. And so if we go on a camping trip, right, and we're out in the middle of the camping trip. We go on the hike of doom, the 3-day hike of doom, right? And we're out in the middle. It's day 2. We pack up. We're getting ready to go. All the tents are torn down. We're getting ready to leave. And one of my kids says to me, I don't want to go any farther. I'm tired. I'm worn out. And I would say, well, this is the way out. You can't just stay here out in the middle of the wilderness. I don't want to go. I would say, but we're going. We have to go. This is how this works. You have to follow me. And then my child responded and said, well, I'm just going to stay here, but I believe in you. Let me say it again. I'm just going to stay here, but I still believe in you. Isn't that good enough? It's not, is it? They're going to be stuck right where they are in the wilderness, right? This is how a lot of people approach their relationship with Jesus. I'm just going to stay here, but I believe in you. Because somehow believing in Jesus is enough. But it's not. Jesus didn't call us just to believe and acknowledge his existence. Jesus called us to follow him, to have a healthy, intimate, passionate, growing relationship with him through Jesus Christ. So I invite you to, again, talk to your neighbor, ask her questions, get her story, and then begin to encourage her not to go to church, but what does it mean to have a healthy, intimate, passionate, growing relationship with Jesus Christ? If that begins to develop, guess what? Eventually, she will go to church because that's the natural next step in following Jesus. Thanks for listening today, guys. Keep sending in your questions. You can check us out at www.faithignited.church. Have a great day.